Joy and sorrow are woven fine. We are all right and not all right at the same time. And we are the embodiment of exactly what is needed right now. Yesterday, I participated in the installation service at Unitarian in St. Paul for the Reverend Dr. Oscar Sinclair. I kind of wish I could squeeze all of the beautifulness of that whole service into this one message. But let me just say that its focus on all the humans who make up our shared ministries, all the humans are treasures. They are our treasures, worthy and divine and broken and beautiful. And in that alchemy, there is joy. And I have to say that I found myself thinking of how in 2 years, hopefully FUS will be holding a similarly joyful celebration of a new ministry here. That whole service captured something that is very difficult to articulate, something so profoundly real and so clearly true, and yet so indefinable that I just can't get my head around it. It's solidly what life is built out of, and yet the words seem to crumble every time I try to capture it. Still, I'm going to try. What I want to say tries to describe that intersection where all that's wrong with the world, all the brokenness inside us, bumps into moments of pure delight. That crossroads, that chaotic and mysterious intersection where somehow, in the presence of all the hard stuff, even in that presence, our inherent worthiness encounters this permission to just live out loud. And joy just happens. And then how it is that joy has a way of launching us forward. It's inexplicable really how and why it happens, can't be pinned down. It just happens. We experience joy, a joy with a propulsive force that allows us to keep going, to move forward, even when it is inconceivable that could even happen. Author Ross Gay describes something similar that happens in a place and in a moment where he says, "We went free." The gift of going free. He says, "We went," implies that the getting there, the escape or flight, is always together, that there is no freedom, despite all that pervasive, ubiquitous, bogus, me against the world, self-made bootstrap baloney. There is no freedom absent we, unquote. Our joy, freedom, happens together. Ross Gay's book, Inciting Joy, is essentially a long and exquisite, painful eulogy for his father. It bowled me over. Almost every one of his essays that are numbered to correspond to times in his life when joy showed up, everyone somehow refers to his father and his father's death. Now, I might say my reflections today are a cover. In the same way that a musician might cover a song, I'm covering Ross Gay today. In fact, in one whole chapter of his book, he talks about covers and how they are examples of non-possessively sharing. An ethic, he says, is embodied in seeds and gardens. He says, the cover is perpetual. We are perpetually covering. We are ever citational. It's called thinking. It's called learning. It's called making. It's called being a creature with. And it's our only choice, unquote. And so I'm embracing this ethic today, covering Ross Gay, covering inciting joy, while simultaneously offering great, deep gratitude for how he has shared his wisdom and poetry with me and with us. It's all about what joy can do. At the beginning of the book, Gay first muses at the ways we think we should associate joy with being in a space that washes you with clean air and glad music and comfy furniture and gentle warmth emanating from the white pine floors, suffused with gentle, warming light pouring in from the enormous windows, with a sweet window seat where you can read a happy book. Unquote. But that is not the kind of joy he writes about. He goes on to define joy as describing it as a potluck that's open to all, like creating ever larger circles with the message, bring a dish and share your sorrows. A potluck that gets really messy with both food and all manner of emotion and activity. And then he says that joy is what emerges from how we care for each other. What if joy, instead of refuge or relief from heartbreak, is what effloresces from us as we help each other carry our heartbreaks? Which is to say, what if joy needs sorrow for its existence? Imagine what our joy can do together. Here's a paragraph I highlighted in that book. Quote, "My hunch is that joy is an ember for or precursor to wild and unpredictable and transgressive and unboundaried solidarity. And that solidarity might incite further joy, which might incite further solidarity, and on and on. My hunch is that joy emerging from our common sorrow, which does not necessarily mean we have the same sorrows, but that we in common sorrow, our common sorrow might draw us together. It might depolarize us and deatomize us enough that we consider what in common we love. And though attending to what we hate in common is too often all the rage, noticing what we love in common and studying that might help us survive. It's why I think of joy, which gets us to love, as being a practice of survival." Joy, a practice of love, a practice of survival, a birthplace of and a seedbed for solidarity. As Toy Delacourt has said, joy is resistance. And if that's what joy is, then I think we would wonder endlessly and expansively what joy might incite in this community, in FUS, as a beloved community. Just imagine. Imagine if you brought all your sorrows into this place. Sorrow about harms you've done or harms done to you, sorrow about losses or leaving, sorrows of regret or ennui, sorrows of the multiple devastations happening around us, sorrows for all the injustices. What if you could bring those sorrows here and could be vulnerable and shake and cry without shame, and we could pull ourselves up close to you and listen or take your hand or sit and walk with you until you cry it out? What if you could rage here? Rage for all the sorrows and the meanness you encounter, and we would rage with you and give you the space to tell it out loud. Imagine this is a place where we, each one, could admit our mistakes and our broken places and show them to one another, and then have a tough chat with one another where we told truths and were held. The joy incited in this way affirms our humanity and makes it possible for us to resist and persist. And what if when we were exhausted and couldn't figure it out, we would sit together and just shake our heads and simply submit to the mystery? And as we did so, we would study one another and creep together into the darkness to explore and learn, perhaps to find ways to change and to heal. What if we knew deep down with unflinching surety that we were loved and worthy and divine beings, and that to be alive together means that we are forever inextricably interconnected beneficiaries of a largeness so large and so deep you will never in one lifetime get to the bottom of it? What if we, while knowing we would never have to pay that largest back, would still devote our every waking second to that task? And what if our joy led to a solidarity where we cultivated together a place of learning, of study, of paying attention to our connections, a place where care happens all the time and where the mycelial threads connecting us, the lustrous web, joy, is flickering there in waiting all the time. Communal joy, communal effervescence, providing a kind of glue that unifies. And what if the outcome of joy was plain and simple in Gay's words, to make beautiful shit together? Beautiful, imperfect, beloved community together, one that flows into us and through us and out of us into the world. Joy insists that there is this kind of largesse, this kind of abundance. Joy incites more joy and more solidarity. Imagine what joy could do. Because imagine all the beautifully impossible things that we can do just because we're caring for one another and paying attention to what matters and to the things we love in common. Outlandishly improbable things could happen. There are many problems, issues, sorrows, griefs, and those things may always be there, may always be with us. But that doesn't mean we should chain ourselves to hopelessness or despair. What if, as the writer Patrick Rosal implies, we could put all that we carry and grieve on a common altar and sit together and listen for the beginning of a new world? What if we knew ourselves to be beholden to each other and to all our relations, human and otherwise, and were to just stay put with one another and listen and ask and wonder and begin to understand and to accept and then to act? Imagine what tenderness, what beauty, what healing might be possible. Audre Lorde said that the sharing of joy, whether physical, emotional, psychic, or intellectual, forms a bridge between the sharers, which can be the basis for understanding much of what is not shared between them, and lessens the threat of their difference. Imagine if joy could do that. And so we must risk delight, risk joy. And we must know that to engage with joy is not a distraction from resistance, not looking away from the hard things, but rather one of our greatest sources of power. Joy acts as a springboard, catapulting us forward, drawing us toward that new world we imagine. So what if we could live at that intersection, where our belovedness and our living out loud and our changing and our discomfort and our grief, what if we could live at that intersection called joy, in the presence of others, here, where we make change and are changed, where we love and are loved, where we die and where we come to life, this place where we bear witness to all of this. I close with one more quote from Ross Gay with deep gratitude for him and his book. He writes, "When we allow and expect each other to change, and even more to the point, when we witness the learning, the changing, the grieving, with curiosity and patience and care and love, when we make room for and witness and invite each other's unfixing, and so are unfixing ourselves, when we join the grieving or when we join in grieving, and when we do it again and again, making of that soft, mutual, curious, groundless witnessing not only an endeavor, but also a practice, when we do these things, when we fall apart into one another, we fall into each other. And when we catch the grave light shimmering from the tethers between us when it happens, our dying again and again in each other's presence, this falling together, it is called, this holding each other through the falling, I'm pretty sure of this, that one of the names anyway is joy. And given as we are always falling, we might always be holding each other like this. We might always be holding each other through our falling, submerged that way in the grave light of joy. When we are changed, when we hold each other, joy is flickering here in weight all the time. So imagine what our joy can do. May it ever be so.